Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're really diving deep into the world of Touriga Franca.
Right.
It's a grape that you might not immediately recognize, but chances are you've probably sipped on it.
Yeah.
Maybe enjoyed it in a glass of wine.
Many times.
And after looking through all of these excerpts,
Yeah.
I'm starting to think that this little grape deserves a lot more attention.
I think so too.
Yeah.
Way more of a spotlight. What do you think?
I totally agree.
Yeah.
Like, what's the deal with Touriga Franca?
It's like the quiet achiever of the wine world. It really is.
Yeah.
I mean, it's been around for centuries,
Right.
especially in port, but just now it's stepping out into the limelight a little on its own.
Yeah, it's like the band member who's content to play those awesome bass lines.
It's a great analogy.
And then suddenly, bam, they're releasing a solo album.
Yeah.
And what I'm gathering from these excerpts is that this is one talented grape
It is.
with a backstory shrouded in mystery.
Absolutely. I mean, its origins, they're a bit of an enigma.
Okay.
We know it's from Portugal.
Right.
Likely the Douro region.
Mm-hmm.
History going back centuries. But the exact details, they're a little fuzzy. They're shrouded in a bit of a delicious haze, if you will.
Okay, now you're making me even more curious.
Good.
So how do we get from these mysterious origins to Touriga Franca becoming like a star player in port wine?
Well, picture the Douro Valley.
Okay.
Those really steep terraced vineyards clinging to the hillsides right along the Douro River.
Okay.
It's a region that's just as dramatic as the wines it produces.
Wow.
And for centuries, Touriga Franca has just thrived in this challenging environment.
Wow.
And it's become this cornerstone of port wine production.
See, and now I'm realizing that I'm a little bit behind because Port and I, we haven't really been formally introduced.
Okay.
So what is it about Touriga Franca that makes it so essential to these fortified wines?
You know those really rich, complex flavors that ports are known for?
Mm-hmm.
All those dark fruits, the spice, the velvety texture.
Yeah.
Touriga Franca brings the structure, the acidity,
Okay.
and then layers of aroma to that blend. Think of it as the backbone, providing the framework for all those luscious flavors to shine.
Ah, so it's like the unsung hero.
It's
It's kind of behind the scenes, adding depth and complexity.
Exactly.
But it sounds like Touriga Franca, like, it's not content just being a team player anymore, right?
Right.
Because I'm seeing all of these, like, single varietal wines popping up,
They are, yeah.
which is super exciting.
It is exciting. It really is. And you're right. It's like it's finally having its moment
Yeah.
on the world wine stage.
Right.
And why is it so popular? Why is this happening now? Well, for one, it's absolutely delicious.
Okay.
But it's incredibly versatile.
Gerso, like, how? How so?
Well, it's adaptable
Okay.
to so many different climates and soils,
Right.
which gets winemakers all over the world very excited, as you can imagine.
Right.
And style-wise,
Okay.
you find everything from those light, fruity rosés
Mhm.
to those really age-worthy reds
Right.
with incredible depth and complexity.
Okay, now you're speaking my language. I love exploring all the different expressions of a grape.
It's so fun.
But before we get ahead of ourselves and jump into tasting notes and all of that, I want to go back to what you were saying about it being so adaptable.
Sure.
Like, what is it about Touriga Franca that makes it such a global citizen? Like, it can thrive in all of these different environments.
That's a really good question.
Hmm.
And it goes back to just the grape's inherent characteristics.
Okay.
One is its naturally thick skin,
Okay.
which acts like armor
Oh,
against the elements, pests,
smart.
and it's a late butter,
Okay.
which means it's less susceptible to those unpredictable spring frosts that can absolutely devastate vineyards.
So it's like evolutionarily, it was just like born ready. It's got this like little survival kit.
Okay,
No
exactly.
wonder it's so adaptable. But let's dive into some specifics.
Okay.
We talked about its history. We talked about its role in port. We talked about its versatility. But what does Touriga Franca actually taste like?
Yes.
Like, what should our listener be looking for when they finally get to raise that glass to their lips?
I love that question. Get ready for a sensory adventure. Touriga Franca is known for these really captivating aromas and flavors. Think ripe plums,
Okay.
juicy blackberries, maybe a hint of raspberry.
Oh.
And then as you swirl the glass,
Yeah.
you'll notice these really delicate floral notes.
Okay.
Violets, maybe a touch of rock rose,
Interesting.
like a walk through a garden.
I love that. I can almost smell it now.
Right.
And let's not forget that, like, intriguing spice note that I always associate with Touriga Franca.
You would get a little spice.
Yes.
Yeah,
Oh,
it wouldn't be the same without it, would it? A touch of black pepper,
right.
maybe some clove or cinnamon,
Yes.
just adding that extra warmth and complexity.
This is making me want to, like, book a flight right now.
I know, me too.
But for those of us who aren't lucky enough to be sipping Touriga Franca in a vineyard overlooking the Douro River, are there any, like, secrets to really unlocking those aromas and flavors? Like, what should we be doing?
I love that you asked that because I'm a firm believer in there being ways to really maximize the experience.
Okay, good.
So first and foremost, think about the wine's temperature.
Okay.
You want to serve Touriga Franca slightly chilled.
Okay.
Not too cold,
Okay.
but enough so that all of those aromas can really open up.
Gotcha.
And don't be afraid to give it a good swirl in the glass.
Yeah.
You know, that's key to releasing all those captivating scents.
Okay, so temperature and a good swirl. Check.
Exactly.
What about food pairings?
Oh, yes.
Because I've always found that, the right pairing can really elevate a wine and vice versa.
100%.
So what are we thinking with Touriga Franca?
Well, its bold flavors and its structure
Mm-hmm.
make it the absolute perfect pairing partner. So imagine it alongside a really hearty charcuterie board with creamy cheeses, like a brie, camembert, a comté, or even a pungent blue cheese like a roquefort.
Oh, now you're just making me hungry. I could go for that right now.
Right.
But I'm sensing Touriga Franca can handle more than just cheese. Am I right?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay, good.
You're right, it can. It's also really nice with any kind of grilled meats, steak, lamb chops, even duck. Or if you're feeling adventurous, try it with gamey meats like wild boar.
Oh, wild boar. Now we're talking. See, that just feels so perfect with Touriga Franca. Like it has that same kind of adventurous spirit.
It totally does.
Yes.
And if you want to really keep those Portuguese vibes going strong,
Yes.
try it with cozido à portuguesa. It's a traditional Portuguese stew.
Okay.
And the richness of that dish is just going to be so beautifully balanced by that acidity and the structure of Touriga Franca.
I love it. You're giving me so many good ideas for my next, dinner party.
Yeah.
I'm going to have to, brush up on my Portuguese cooking. But for now, let's shift gears a little bit and talk about how this, amazing grape actually goes from the vineyard to our glass. What's the winemaking process like for Touriga Franca?
It's such an interesting journey.
Mm-hmm.
And just like the grape itself,
Mm-hmm.
it really kind of walks this line between tradition and innovation.
Okay.
Harvest typically happens early October,
Okay.
when the grapes have reached that really perfect balance of sugar and acidity and those all-important tannins.
Okay, and those tannins, those are what give red wines, their structure, their aging potential.
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
And Touriga Franca, it's known for its really nice, firm tannins,
Okay.
which soften and they integrate so beautifully with aging.
Got it.
Now, after the harvest, the grapes, they undergo something called maceration,
Okay.
which is really just a fancy word for soaking.
Mm-hmm.
They soak the grape skins and the juice together.
Okay.
And that's really where the magic happens.
Got it.
That's where they get the color.
It's like steeping tea.
Exactly.
With grapes.
Exactly. That's a perfect way to describe it. And then, after they've had their nice little soak, then comes the fermentation.
Right.
And that's where yeast converts all that sugar into alcohol.
Okay.
So it transforms that grape juice into wine. Now, this can be done in stainless steel tanks,
Okay.
which is a much more modern approach.
Right.
Or they do it in traditional stone lagares,
Okay.
which some winemakers really believe enhances the texture and the complexity of the wine.
The stone lagar, it was just that sounds so ancient and romantic. I love that.
I know, it does, doesn't it?
Yes. Is there a big difference in the final product depending on which method they use?
Well, that's the million-dollar question, isn't it?
Yeah.
Some winemakers, they swear by tradition. They'll only use those old methods.
Right.
And then others, they're all about embracing the modern technology.
Right.
So ultimately, it really comes down to just the winemaker's personal style and what they want to highlight in the wine.
So it's like choosing between a vintage record player and a state-of-the-art sound system. They both can deliver incredible music.
I love that. That's a great way to put it.
It just depends on your preference. But speaking of preference, let's talk oak. Does Touriga Franca typically spend time in oak?
You bet. Oak aging, it's really crucial
Okay.
for taming those bold tannins
Mm-hmm.
and adding that extra layer of complexity.
Right.
French oak is a popular choice.
Okay.
And that often lends notes of spice, cedar, tobacco, all those good things.
Oh, so that like smoky, spicy thing that I always get in Touriga Franca,
Yes.
that's the oak talking.
Yeah, it's the oak.
Okay.
That's a big part of it.
Wow.
And then you've got American oak,
okay.
which can impart flavors of vanilla, coconut, and even a hint of dill.
Wow. That's amazing how much oak can impact the flavor.
I know, it's really incredible.
Yeah.
And even just the type of oak is only one variable.
Right.
You've got the age of the barrel, the toast level, how long the wine's been in the barrel.
Right.
All those factors play into the final flavor.
It really is as much of an art as it is a science, this whole winemaking thing. 100%. Speaking of art, we've talked a lot about Touriga Franca's past, its present. But what about its future? Like, what does the future hold for this really cool grape?
Oh, the future of Touriga Franca. Now, that is a question I love to ponder. And honestly, I think it's looking pretty bright.
Okay.
You know, this isn't just like a trendy grape having its moment. This is a grape with staying power.
Okay. I'm hearing that confidence in your voice, so you're going to have to convince me. Like, what makes you so optimistic about its future?
Well, for one, it really checks all the boxes.
Okay.
For what people are looking for now. You know, freshness, complexity, a real sense of place.
Right.
And, you know, it doesn't hurt that it makes these wines that tend to have a slightly lower alcohol content.
Right.
Which really resonates with people who are trying to be a little more mindful about what they drink.
Right. Like, it was made for this moment in wine.
Totally.
But I'm also seeing a lot of buzz about sustainability and Touriga Franca. So I'm curious if anything in the excerpt stood out to you on that front.
For sure. So, you know, for a long time, Portuguese winemaking was all about tradition.
Right.
Right. Sticking to those tried and true methods. But there's this new generation of winemakers who are really embracing organic and biodynamic practices.
And for those of us who need a little refresher course, what does that actually look like in the vineyard and in the winery?
So basically, it's about working with nature.
Okay.
Instead of trying to control it.
Got it.
So think like minimizing the use of chemicals.
Okay.
Really focusing on biodiversity in the vineyard, using natural yeasts for fermentation.
Right.
Just really letting the grape and that terroir express themselves.
So it's like they're returning to the roots of winemaking, but with this modern understanding of sustainability, which is really cool.
Exactly.
I love that. But I imagine it's not always easy, right? Like, what are some of the challenges that are facing Touriga Franca as it kind of steps into the spotlight more and more?
Well, you know, as with anything agriculture, there's always going to be challenges.
Yeah.
Climate change is a big one.
Right.
Even though Touriga Franca is naturally resilient, it's still vulnerable to things like mildew. And these unpredictable weather patterns, they can really throw a wrench in things.
So how are winemakers adapting to these, you know, ever-changing conditions?
It's a lot of like constant innovation.
Okay.
You know, really trying to stay ahead of the game.
Right.
They're trying out different vineyard management techniques.
Okay.
Like adjusting how they prune the vines to improve airflow.
Okay.
Reduce humidity, which helps combat that mildew.
Smart.
And then there's this whole fascinating world of clonal selection.
Okay, you're going to have to break that down for me because clonal selection, that sounds very sci-fi.
It does. It sounds very futuristic, but it's actually really cool. It's basically, imagine taking the strongest, most resilient Touriga Franca vines and then using those to cultivate new vines.
Wow.
So it's like creating this super-powered version of the grape.
Okay.
That's equipped to handle whatever diseases come its way and whatever climate changes are thrown at it.
So by focusing on these like really strong clones, it's almost like they're ensuring the future of Touriga Franca, you know, for generations to come, which is pretty incredible to think about.
I know. And beyond the, you know, practicalities of climate change and disease and all of that, there's this amazing spirit of exploration when it comes to Touriga Franca.
Yeah, I love that.
You know, winemakers are pushing boundaries, experimenting with different fermentation vessels, aging techniques, blending partners.
Right.
It's really cool to see.
It sounds like the possibilities are endless.
They really are.
This makes me so excited about what's next for this grape.
Me too.
So as we uncork this last drop of our deep dive here.
Yes, cheers to that.
Any final thoughts? Like, what's the one thing you really hope our listeners take away from our conversation today?
You know, when you think about Portugal and its incredible winemaking history, Touriga Franca often gets, kind of overshadowed by some of its more famous counterparts.
Right.
But what we've learned today is that this grape is a force to be reckoned with.
It is.
It has that history, it has that character, the versatility,
Mm-hmm.
and, most importantly, the deliciousness
Right.
to captivate wine lovers for, I think, years to come.
Totally.
So next time you're at the wine shop,
Yeah.
don't be afraid to, venture out, look beyond the usual suspects.
Mm-hmm.
Give Touriga Franca a try. You might just discover your new favorite wine.
I love it. Beautifully said. And on that note, cheers to trying new things and to exploring this amazing world of wine. Cheers. Thank you so much for joining us for this deep dive on Touriga Franca,
It was my pleasure.
a grape that is clearly so much more than meets the eye.
100%.